Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hello, my beloved Trekkers, and welcome back to the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 174. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, your humble servant, Charlie Carden, joined as always by my number one Trek dude, Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, good evening.
Good evening.
We are recording this one early, as we will be recording an Holocron early next week, because you're in New York State this weekend. I'm in Long Island, New York, the following weekend, which I'll talk about in a minute because it is Star Trek related, where yours unfortunately is not. Not that it's unfortunate that you're going, but it's just too bad these didn't align. But what I'm going to talk about, hopefully, that we go into April and I are going to do, will end up being successful, and the three of us can do it next year. That would be awesome. But yeah, we'll get right on into it. But we're getting into, we're still in the random episode / best and worst slice until we get into July, when we'll be talking about Strange New World Season 4 and bringing back, kind of some of our regular network contributors to talk about that with us. So we've got a random episode. It's interesting. And then the show that we're going to do, tops of, they're both modern era. I don't want to call it New Trek because that sounds very derogatory, but they're both modern era shows, which it's been a while since we had content focus that didn't have to do with legacy content, which is kind of the space that Peter and I are admittedly bigger fans of, but that doesn't mean that it's that way for everyone. So we're going to try to do our very best to talk very favorably, in particular in the second part of our show, about our top 5 and bottom 5 of Star Trek Discovery. We're going to try to provide some insight. We're going to try to keep our minds open. And more to the point, would love people to circle back with us and tell us how you agree or disagree with us. That is a piece that is sometimes missing. People get so busy in their everyday lives that they don't think about, well, I should write to a podcast. But we would like to hear from you. An absolutely awesome way to do this, and I just did a post on all of our Secret Friends Unite social medias and my personal social media at the C3 at all of the big social medias, is to join our Patreon, which you can do for free. And the thing that I posited over at patreon.com/Sacred Friends Unite is that even if you join for free and stay free, it's the one place that you'll know when we publish a new show. You'll get a drop, and even if that means you ping pong over and listen to it free, or over time you do a trial, which you can do for 1 week for free and then get half off your first month, you're still getting a ton of exclusive programming. You're getting all of our shows coming out early. But we would love to, Peter and I admittedly need to do a better job interacting with people on Patreon. It's just, we got to do it. So I would love to do that. But yeah, let us know that you're out there. Let us know that you're listening. But sign up to the Patreon. We'd love to talk to people that way, even if they're free members. I know we picked up a few there. And if you're listening to the show, we're very grateful. We're very glad to have you on board. Again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Join for free, stay for free, and just be aware of what we're up to. And one thing that we're up to that I'm super psyched about, and I mentioned a second ago, and this almost qualifies as news, but everybody knows there are tons of Star Trek conventions. There have been for over 50 years, since the first real Star Trek convention happened in New York City in 1973. It's a very famous story. And there's been an ebb, there's been a flow. Creation is the big one. I've talked about kind of my lack of enthusiasm around going to Star Trek Las Vegas a few years ago. There are people who absolutely swear by it. I didn't find it to be such a great experience. Since then, Creation has kind of expanded and contracted. They had regional shows. They shut them all down. Now they have one in Philadelphia that's happening at the end of this year. Not really my jam, but there are a couple of other smaller shows that focus on a kind of a smaller segment of the Star Trek fan convention community, and one of which I've talked a couple of times that April and I are going to attend in a couple of weeks here, and this helped me. I interviewed Marvel Comics' Joe Duffy a couple of nights ago, a lifetime New Yorker, who actually told me the name of the town that we're going to be at in Long Island. It's Hauppauge, which is just east of the city proper. So it's just east of Queens.
Nice.
And, it's funny. I don't have absolutely all of the details with me, but it has an absolutely wonderful list of guests, including, they have some that are one-time guest stars, some that are writers, directors, local performers. Visiting their website is going to be a place where you're going to get all that information. Please pay attention to my social media in the next week or so, because I'm going to talk about this a lot. But I'm really excited to be talking in person with our friend Stephanie Chakowski, who was a guest on the Spotlight relatively recently. Jeffrey Combs, who I've talked to in the past, met him on the cruise, and a host of other really great people, including authors that we've had on the show, including Michael Jan Freeman, who was a wonderful interview that Peter and I had last year. Please visit Trek Long Island. Just give them a Googs, and I'll put a link in our show notes as well. But April and I will have a table there representing the podcast, but we'll also be delivering a panel, which we've done here in Michigan, called The Science of Star Trek. And then we are actually super honored to be hosting the panel for Nicole DeBoer, Esri Dax of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and conducting that for the benefit of those who are attending. So we're really psyched. This show seems really great. Been very interactive. They open their arms to us to have us come down. We have a new booth. Peter, you'll love this. We have a booth, and I'm going to put a picture of. But April ordered a table runner like we had in the old days when we were in SFI. But she ordered this display thing that is super cool. That I suppose I've seen it at trade shows, but we have one that's it's your picture, my picture, right on there. Nice. But I'll post some. Yeah, I'll post some pictures on social media here in the next couple of days. But Trek Long Island, visit the website if you live in the tri-state area, or if you're attending anyway. Regardless, and you listen to the show, God, because we have listeners all over the world, please come find April and myself. We'd love to talk to you about the podcast. So, okay, Peter, this is the first time in random episode history I think we've done an episode of Star Trek Picard.
I think so. Yeah.
We've done Enterprise, and in the newer generation, we've done episodes of Discovery, which we're going to talk about in the second segment.
I also think we got some lower decks.
We definitely have had some lower decks. I mean, that was last episode. We had lower decks.
Yeah, but I don't think we've gotten Picard, and I don't think we've gotten Prodigy yet in
right
episode.
And I think what's nice about the random episode, I've talked about this in the past, we will reach out to listeners, members of the Patreon, other content creators that we work with, which is actually where this one came from. And I'll pick a series that I'm looking at the list, and we've not talked about this series in a while. So in this case, I reached out to a great guy named Chris Garris. He runs the Transporter Room podcast. Super nice guy. Yeah. Does what we do, and he and I had a wonderful conversation several months ago. We're going to have him on to talk about a random Enterprise episode here within the next couple of episodes. So I'm pretty psyched about that. But I said to him, I'm looking for a Star Trek Picard episode. I kind of go back and forth. It's random because I say, pick a series, and sometimes someone will pick a series, and sometimes I'll have to toss them a series because I'm like, we've not had that in a long time. And then it's a dice roll, it's a virtual dice roll. So in this case, it rolled Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 6, The Impossible Box. And so it puts us in kind of a crazy position with this newer generation of Trek shows being very episodic. So you have a single ongoing storyline that stretches out over 10 episodes, as opposed to the old days, as you were, where you had kind of your episode of the week, monster of the week, planet of the week. So, we've talked about this, I think, definitely when we covered a Discovery episode last year, that we walked into it, we just didn't necessarily know cues they were giving and things related to the ongoing storyline, like, kind of what's going on. But I think there was enough here to extract something decent from it. So to break the episode down, Picard and the crew track SODE to the Borg cube in Romulan space. Remember that was the artifact. Remember that was the thrust of this season, if you've not seen Star Trek Picard. Resurfacing haunting memories from Picard, which I think was obviously something really great that was done in the episode. Meanwhile, Narek believes he has found a way to safely exploit SODE for information. Romulans! This episode, written by Nick Zayas, directed by Maya Vervillo, I think. Vervillo?
Yeah, I think
it's an unusual last name. And this came out. This did air on 27 February of 2020. Remember, Star Trek Picard was produced and originally aired on Paramount Plus. Can still be found there, but also is available for purchase on video on demand or in physical media. I know I happen to own the third season in physical media just because I loved it so much. But the other two seasons, and they're available as a box set too. So, Peter, let's get into it. Let's talk about this episode.
All right. Yeah, so it was interesting getting back into this episode. Full disclosure, I did watch the whole thing.
Yeah,
with the recap to make sure that I was on point.
I had to. I did. Did it have a proper recap?
It did have a recap. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it did have a recap. So, yeah, we get right back into it. We see Soji working on the cube, and we see that Narek is seducing her, for lack of a better term, right. in order to get inside her head, quite literally. There's a much later scene where he uses a Romulan meditation technique, I guess, and they walk a brain pattern. It's based on some meditation techniques that I've seen before. I forget what they're called, like prayer gardens or whatever. It's based off of that. But they go through that, and it's like a brain trace of neural patterns on the floor,
right?
So that they can, while she's awake, go through the dream and see her subconscious and get what they want. So eventually he gets what he wants, but the whole thrust of the Romulan side of the episode is to get someone to reveal something that you want from them, and they're complex, is you have to take your time, you have to be slow, and you have to figure out what you're doing. Hence the title, The Impossible Box, because there's this Rubik's Cube toy that he has from childhood that his sister hated, that you had to like very, very carefully and delicately, which is a very Romulan thing, right?
Yeah, that they definitely
that felt very Romulan. There's some other things in this season that don't feel Romulan, but that felt very Romulan.
I'm remembering now that you had an online kind of exchange with one of the producers of the show.
I had an online spat with one of the online.
And so when you said that, and I think it was related to the Romulans, because the Romulans is definitely a key interest of yours.
I really like the Romulans.
Yeah, so that's and again, you don't have to get into it. I just remember that you kind of threw down with this guy, and he got kind of shitty with you, as I recall.
Yes.
So I was about to say the sister character, and I had to look up her name because Peyton List is her name, was on the cruise either the first or second year, and she was one of the people I caught going up and down the stairs on the ship, and we had a nice conversation. Seems like a very nice woman, not British,
but unlike the character.
Yes, we all tend to leaning into and that was one of my main gripes. Like, I'm trying to think of another Romulan in the history of Romulans we bumped into that had a British accent. I can't think of one.
No.
Tell me one.
There really aren't any. There's some who have a very posh East Coast American. So like what you would think of like the elite, where they're speaking like at the top.
Romulan coastal elites, new name of the episode.
Yeah, but where they talk at like the back of their soft palate, you can kind of hear it's a little nasally. Where it sounds like they're talking down to you. How dare you come to my face and spout these things, for you are below me. Like there's that very like.
I'm reminded of the very first Romulan, which was of course portrayed by Mark Leonard, who is from Chicago, but grew up in South Haven, Michigan, which is my mom grew up in South Haven, Michigan, though she was born in the Bay City, Michigan area. So I always think of like, that is not a South Haven accent.
No, it's not.
But and to me, I don't love that they kind of toss it in there like, well, this just makes him sound more smart or more mysterious. And they're both so reprehensible, the two Romulan characters, but they're supposed to be. That plays really well into, I think, what you have come to expect and really, like about Romulans. You know what I mean?
The deviousness. Yeah. The whole tact where like there's so much secrets. I didn't really care for that, but like the deviousness in the plots, that's very Romulan. But we have that. Back on the La Serena, you have Rios and everybody are kind of prepping. You have this really like, I'm conflicted about this episode's portrayal of Jean-Luc.
Okay.
like there's stuff that I get, and then there's some character decisions that I don't get. So one of them is like very deeply character rooted, and I'll get to that in a second. But one of them is just kind of, it's a plot convenience. And so for those who don't remember, in the previous episode, the drummer from Scott Pilgrim killed Maddox.
You're talking about Allison Pill.
Yes, Girardi
yeah,
is her name.
Who just, spoiler alert, becomes the Borg Queen in the next season.
Season, yeah.
Let's really hope we don't get season 2 as an episode.
That's special. But she's going through this whole thing where she's like giving this excuse that Maddox just, his heart gave out, basically. And it's like, Jean-Luc Picard is a master of seeing through bullshit.
Right.
And so I just
built his whole career on it. Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things about like her character is that she's very nervous, and she's very like, she's not good at this whole thing.
Right.
Of being, a secret agent, lying and all that shit.
Well, apparently she's good at tramping about, because she hooks up with Rios, who I'd like very much. He's very cool.
Rios is fine. Yeah, but it's just this very like, how did you convince Jean-Luc Picard that you're not full of shit? Like it's a little difficult. I understand why, story-wise, but it just doesn't make sense to me character-wise. Just on Picard's part, because he can read people.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, could it simply be, let's not forget, keeping in mind that the character himself is almost 100.
Well, yeah, he is old, and there's that going on.
And we do find out that he's dying, which is, and again, sorry
about
all the
for a while.
Yeah, sorry about all the spoilers, but yeah. So that was pointed out because he, earlier in the season, he connects with
his doctor,
the guy who was his CMO from the Stargazer, who is now retired, but he's Picard's personal physician. He's like, yeah, you're dying. If you go back into space, you're dead. It's going to kill you. And obviously, they know that's where things land. I'm drawing a big blank. Did we not? This is episode 6 of 10. What happened to 7? 7 of 9. Is she not in this yet?
She was in the previous episode.
Okay. Where'd she go?
So remember, she's there. So she shows up, I think, 2 episodes ago, and then they go to the planet where
she has to kill what's her face,
where she vaporizes not Deanna Troi.
Yeah, not Deanna Troi.
I don't remember her name, but she just reminds me of a very young Marie.
It was she had a real great. It was like the Jazzle or something. Well, I'm sorry, that sounds more like a dirty word. Like Bejazel. It was Bejazel
or something.
And you're right. Yeah. It was a woman who looks very much like a younger version.
But
of Marina.
Because they're looking for Maddox and they find him, and then Seven has like a grudge against this person for some reason, and she vaporizes her.
She vapes her. Puff.
Yeah, she vapes her. Yeah, puff.
Well, didn't she orchestrate killing
a bunch of people.
Face? Yeah, but it was I thought she was involved.
That's also the episode where we see what's his face? Icheb horrifically murdered.
Yeah. And I thought she had something to do with that. See, this is the struggle with having this interconnected storyline, is that we just get lost in all the details. So I know 7 shows up in the next episode because there's this great ongoing battle on the artifact. And one of the big part of that, because he jumps right on at the end, is Elnor. And I love Elnor. And I also, the reason I had the Alpha open is that I wanted to remember the name of the Evangoria, who I spoke to at Miss Chicago back in 2022. Yep. What a nice kid. Loved him. Also met Issa Briones in that, who is Soji, who now has a very big career boom on her hand because she's in the pit. She's one of the characters in the pit. And I got to meet both of them, and it was funny. They had a tattoo artist there at Michigan. I was called Michigan, Chicago. I was supposed to call it Michigan, Chicago. And I started getting a tattoo, which see when she's. I'm like, I was there for that. Yay! But yeah, he was really great. But I love his like real commitment to being this very straightforward fish out of water. I play by the absolute rules. And his out butt in butt when he's trying to butt in and butt out.
That scene worked pretty well. That was funny.
But yeah, right. So Picard says, well, because they go to the artifact, he's got to connect with Hugh, which is Jonathan Del Arco. You remember him obviously from his 2 appearances on TNG.
Is Borg and Descent. Yeah.
Yeah, the first Descent 2.
Yes.
Where he was, he was kind of jailbroke from being Borg, and you never knew what happened to him. But this is what he ended up kind of doing with his life. Oh, you know who's a Brit? You know who's I have it in my notes. A Romulan that we saw who had an accent, and it was almost like, is it nature or nurture, or was it genetic? Was Shinzon, who was Tom Hardy.
That was
Picard
barely there because he was also supposed to be Picard, and they were playing a nature nurture thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. Yeah, it's genetics. So, go ahead.
There's also a whole through line in this episode where we talk about Picard remembering his time as Locutus in a very traumatic way.
Right.
And I have mixed feelings about this particular story choice.
Okay.
Like, I get it, because I have things in my past that I don't like remembering and were pretty horrific.
Absolutely, everybody does.
Everybody does, but I'm just saying, like, where like you walk somewhere and then you like freeze because you're just like, oh shit. Spirits. Like, I get it, but it's also one of these things that Picard, the character, has not left alone and not faced.
Right.
If you know what I mean. Like, he's had the Borg in his face multiple times. He's worked through it with his brother initially, then he worked through it later in
First
Contact. Right. And there was definitely some catharsis there. And so it's one of those things where, like, I understand what they're doing because, like, trauma can resurface in different ways throughout your life and all of that. Like, it's not like it goes away forever. But it was just interesting that it was such a strong visceral reaction in the way that he was, like, hyperventilating and all of this, simply because it's like, and maybe and part of it is the writers really, and Patrick Stewart, from my understanding, really wanted to play up the fact that he's old and frail and, is vulnerable.
Right.
So I get it, but it's still a very, it felt like there was a different way that you could have done that without making it kind of ignore the fact that he has addressed this in the past already.
Right.
If you know what I mean. Because like, he has weaponized the fact that he was Locutus several times.
Right. So this is and now he's exploiting it for the purposes of this too, because they need to find SODE, because that's the whole, driving thrust of the season is finding her, and then eventually finding out kind of what her ultimate destiny is. We get one of our few glimpses of a Starfleet captain in this, which is Michelle Hurd was, to me, the best part of this episode. I loved her horrible, scraping the bottom of the barrel emotionally, drinking, but still kind of faking her way through to kind of get the mission done. But yeah, she's chatting with her friend whose name is like, what is Misty or Missy or something. I thought I wrote it down. Who's another captain who's like, at the end of it, they get them what they need to get, which is the pass for them to get onto this artifact. Mm-hmm. And she had a couple of great. Oh, Captain Emmy. Her name is Emmy. Like, hey, I won an Emmy. So probably Amelia or Emily, something like that. And they're pals, but apparently not after this conversation. I loved her line. The Romulans are in a 250-year bad mood. It's pretty good.
They're always in a bad mood. Yeah.
And I wrote, Raffi is a terrible friend, by the way. Never call me again. Captain Emmy says, good call. Yeah. But yeah, Michelle. And again, Michelle, I met Michelle on the cruise. I think it was the second year we went. And she was conducting with the trivia panel. She was like, she looked exhausted when she was conducting it, but still, what a professional. Mm-hmm. What a pro. And just really admiring her performance in this. So, so we get to the point, Soji is feeling like something's wrong. She starts going through all her shit. And I love, this is a piece of technology that everybody should have. It's that carbon dating wand where you can wave it over something and it'll tell you how old it is.
I mean, it's just a tricorder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll never go on a first date again and have somebody said, no, really, I'm 32. Oh, 57. All right.
Yeah. How old is this picture? 37 months.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's not going to work.
How old is this picture? 60 years. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the whole Romulan reclamation project and the big everything they do externally with that kind of broken down cube, and they have the perimeter around it and all the force fields that are holding
it's
it
kind of
together.
neat. They did redesign some of the Borg interiors, which was a little bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, especially since they made such a big point of, well, every Borg ship is exactly identical
Right.
down to the millimeter.
Only because
but,
these regeneration
Right.
cubes felt like Apple Store regeneration cubes. They're
Right. Whoops, I think I lost you a minute. Did you tick your...
I must have bumped the yeah.
Oh
we're good.
boy. Okay.
Yeah, all I said was like they looked like Apple.
Yeah.
They looked like Apple things because they're very smooth and shiny, and it's like that's not what stuff looks like.
I mean, keep in mind, obviously, the Borg sets changed from TNG to Voyager, but they didn't
they were
so drastically.
Especially the first time we see the Borg, they were very clean and very orderly and less wires and stuff. But we didn't have like the space for like the electrode thing with the green light. It was again, I nitpick all sorts of design choices, so that was just something that I noticed.
Right. Well, we'll get into nitpicking design choices when we get into the second half of our episode. Because, whoo, I got some. But yeah, Soji figures it out. Then she gets trapped in a room and backstabbed by the not so smooth. I don't know what she falls. He's a total scumbag. By
not so smooth operator.
Yeah, not so smooth. That could be another great name for the episode. I was trying to figure out why she was choking on red dust if she's a droid, but
I think they explain in the previous episode that it's some sort of antipositronic compound.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
I know the next episode is with the Rikers, which I was super psyched about. I wish we would have picked that one, but I was trying to figure out what the hell happened to 7 of 9 because I figured that she beamed in. But Elnor is wicked. He's like Daredevil plus Storm Shadow. He's just flipping around, but he's so polite. Choose to live, my friend, while he chops some other, and he's fighting other Romulans. So it's like Romulan on Romulan crime. And I get really bummed out because he's great in the season. We see him for like 5 minutes in the next season, and it's the whole time travel paradox thing.
And then
he dies, but then you find out and he's alive, and then you never see him again. So the character's essentially lost forever, which kind of sucks.
It's one of those very weird choices.
Yeah.
There's characters that you wanted to see more of, like, and then they didn't.
I mean, if there was a legacy series, which nobody's ever, according to Marina, there never will be. But really, for the fact that Star Trek isn't currently, they don't have a show in production, we don't really know what they're going to do. That'd be a character I'd love to see again. But the whole Romulan reclamation project, as I was saying, is pretty cool. It's very multi-layered. They're giving people their identities back, which you see, some nice evidence of this. You see a guy who, looks in the mirror for the first time, and even though his face is very ravaged, he sees his true self with skin tone, and he's crying. And so I think he's crying out of one eye because he's the guy who has one eye.
Yeah. Again, I have mixed feelings about the choices there. Specifically because 7 we were able to fully reconstruct to normalcy, but
she was Borg for like 20 years. So
again, it's body horror. That's what they're going for,
right? Yeah, it's what they're and they didn't want to do serious body horror week after week on a show in the 90s. What do you say? Oh, sorry. So it's like I would have loved to seen a bit more of that, but I know at the end of the season they just end up crashing the Borg cube on that planet where all the androids are, and then they just leave it because then that planet becomes a sovereign state and you never hear from it again.
Surprise, you have Borg technology just chilling. Nothing could possibly go bad.
Nobody's ever going to come along and take it from them, I'm sure, because they'll call the space orchids or whatever the hell.
Or, it'll never reactivate for some reason and start assimilating your shit for no reason.
Yeah, because Borg never ever do that. So anyway, to wrap things up, it's tough. Rating wise, I was probably a 5 or a 6 out of 10. I loved Michelle's performance. Thought she really brought it, but there's just too many things that are like, British talking Romulans and the body horror stuff and changing, Picard's behavior seems kind of weird. And, they're trotting things out. Like, it just doesn't really give a lot of love and respect to people who are really steeped in it. They're trying to just blast you with something new, which is what we'll talk about when we get into talk about Discovery. Like I wrote these semi-sexual Romulan siblings I can do without them. They're gross the way they're like, they're just like practically making out. It's
very strange.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, Michelle snagged it for me. It was nice to see some of the core cast. So that would be Elnor and Soji and then obviously Michelle as
really
Rafi. Kind of push things forward.
Yeah, there's some really solid performances. Like, I'm not going to knock it in that way. There were some good performances. Del Arco did a great job with bringing back Hugh. I mean, we saw him a little earlier as well, but like in the season. But he did a great job, like the reuniting with Captain Picard. I mean, yes, technically it was a little forced because sometimes some of the very friendliness of like, I've never seen you in like 20 years is like, and you were the leader and like, there is sometimes in the newer shows I'm like, hey, I haven't seen you. It's like, that's how the fans feel. That's not necessarily what these characters would do, but it's okay. But there was some good performances there. There was like the way that they did the tension of Soji trying to redo her memories, like that was done well. So like there's some solid pacing stuff and some solid storytelling here. There's just also, as I tend to say, there's just some also very strange storytelling decisions that are also in here. So I know
fair enough.
Also like 6 times, but you know.
Also, what's your rating out of 10?
I would probably put this one at like a 5.5.
Right.
So I know I tend to be a little bit of a downer on some of these, but I didn't quite enjoy season 1 very much.
Yeah, it was tough, and it took such a nosedive into season 2, and then it really stuck the landing in season 3. I love season 3. I've watched season 3 probably 3 or 4 times, and I will, including fairly recently. So, all right, fun facts. You mentioned the hug between Picard and Hugh, not scripted, something that Stewart and Del Arco came up with on their own right before the cameras rolled. So I like that, but like you said, it seemed in some ways it seems kind of weird.
It felt a little meta.
Yeah, as Picard is sitting in his faux study on the holodeck, he watches images of the Enterprise E fighting with the Borg cube in the sector of in the Battle of Sector 001 in Star Trek: First Contact. The Romulan Continuing Committee, led by Praetor Norell in the DS9 episode Intim Arnhem. You know, I'm
Inter
talking
Arma
about.
Enim Sealant Leges. Yeah,
that's one. It's nice to see a DS9 throw out because it happens very infrequently. Hugh as Hugh. And then aboard the artifact as he appears now, and Locutus, and they do this nice little kind of blending together of their faces because Picard's watching on a translucent.
But he's
screen.
Watching it in reverse. It's the only way that shot works, which is just weird. I get it, but it's so weird.
It's the optics of the 21st century. I thought this was interesting. So Soji keeps photographs and memorabilia from her fictional childhood in a lunchbox branded The Adventures of Flotter. Look at that. Kristen Bayer, who has been a guest on our show, suggested Flotter as a 24th century's children pop culture figure a la SpongeBob SquarePants. That's going to be my closest analogy.
That is exactly where they're going with that one.
This was my personal favorite when I saw this episode 6 years ago, and I liked it again now. The artifact is equipped with a spatial trajector, technology which the Borg acquired from assimilating the Sakarans, who were from a very early episode of Voyager. The episode Prime Factors was like episode 7 or 8, when the Voyager found their first actual opportunity to cut a little time off their journey, but it didn't end up working out. So apparently the Borg version does not have the limitation of the thick the quartz mantle of a planet to make it work, which was the problem in the Voyager episode. I just really blew that word. Writer producer again, Kristen Bayer, had an idea to use the trajector in the episode. So I love that. I loved it. I loved an inside baseball, something that your casual fan just be like, okay, fine. It's some made up Star Trek word.
Yeah.
It's not, that was pretty cool. First time an android dreams are realized on screen since Phantasms, another very forgettable 7th season episode of TNG. In both cases, the dream is a crucial plot element, and both episodes feature an outsider entering and influencing the dream in order to manipulate and extract important information. Wasn't that the one with the nightmares? And the Troy is the cake, and the Picard has
phone.
The chest. And the Data has the
Data, your new Google phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's got data.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the nightmare episode. So this one's a little different because she's literally awake and just kind of walking through it.
Right.
And he's not in the dream with her. He's just talking to her. So it functions differently, but it is the same idea.
Right. Same idea. Well, again, this has been interesting. And again, it's a little weird. We had this experience with the Discovery episode that we covered several months back, is that when you just drop into one of these newer shows that has this very, I won't say rigid, season-long storyline.
It kind of is rigid in a way.
It's kind of hard to pick things apart. So it's a lot easier with the other shows we talk about, because I can jump into an episode of Voyager and say, okay, well, on this week they went to this planet and this thing and that thing happened, or there was this guest star and I liked it or I didn't like it. So hopefully we did our best. Hopefully, we created some interest to you. I know we kind of danced around spoilers a little bit, but it's from a few years ago. But again, that show can be found physical media, video on demand, or of course, Paramount Plus. So speaking of Paramount Plus, the very first, back when it was CBS All Access in 2007, the first Star Trek program that they produced was called Star Trek Discovery. And this was coming out of Star Trek being off of television for 12 years prior, when Star Trek Enterprise ended in 2005. There had been 3 essentially unattached films that were produced in an alternate TOS era universe, starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, and that whole gang that had concluded by this point, though I don't know that they thought that they concluded, but that last film
the Beyond came out a couple months before, a year basically.
Yeah, about a year, because this aired, and I couldn't tell you exactly when this, I don't have that information.
September of 2017 was when Discovery aired.
There's a full year afterwards, because I remember that being the summer movie.
It was 2016,
which I enjoyed very much. Good for them to go out on a kind of a high.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed Beyond.
Yeah, so. But it's no secret that Peter and I don't really care for the show. Sorry.
Sorry.
We're going to, regardless, try to paint a picture of some things that we did enjoy, and then we're going to try to not be ruthless with things that we didn't. And, if you listen to this show for a long time, Missy, who recorded with us many years back and who's someone that we don't really stay in touch with, was a devotee of this because she loved Doug Jones. I don't think one actor a great show makes. I know Doug Jones too. Super duper nice guy, very talented guy. That didn't make me love this show. Now, my wife really enjoys this show, but my wife also really enjoyed the JJ movies. And the thing is, the JJ are the movies that we were just talking about. The thing about entertainment is, as I try to remind myself, and as I say all the time, it is not all things to all people.
Nope.
If there are people that are loving Discovery, and if I am giving you the red ass with my comments, I apologize. Please feel free to reach out. Tell me some moments that you loved about the show after we're done. Tell me some moments that you hated about the show or obvious things we missed. I'll give all of our social media tags at the end. Just tell us how you're feeling. But we're gonna try to be a little bit more balanced as humanly possible. So Star Trek Discovery did run 4 or 5 seasons, ending in 2024. Yeah, because it just celebrated its 2-year anniversary of the finale. I saw that on my feeds just a couple of days ago. So, all right, Peter, I'm going to jump in feet first, and we're going to go positive.
All right.
We're going to go positive.
I've got a list of positive episodes. I specifically named which ones they were.
Okay. And I will admit that when I get into the negatives, I got a little bit more generic. I kind of talked about more big picture stuff than episodes. But you know what? That's just that's part of the problem of why having such a interconnected episode. It's tough to
when you're too serialized. It makes it a little difficult to pry.
So it's hard to say. Well, I thought episode 8 was great. Like even reading the recap summaries, and again to look at all the episodes in a snapshot. I went to IMDb, and they have a ranker for every series, which is what I've been using to help spur my memory. And it's tougher when it's something that I don't watch that much. So, okay, well, my first episode is it's the season 2 finale, Such a Sweet Sorrow, Part 2. I said, well, the set pieces and the big slug out are pretty great, and pushing the setting to the distant future, which is where it absolutely always should have been, and I'll talk more about that lately. I enjoyed all that stuff very much. but again, and it's funny, I moved this from the worst to the best because I'm like, I kind of enjoyed those other two parts, and I really enjoyed Sonequa's performance. I have met her on the cruise a couple of years ago. Had some really nice conversation with her. I've told this story before. I opened the door to leave our cabin on the last day, and she and her husband were walking by. So I met her for a second time, introduced her to April. And she is absolutely wonderful. She's the best part of the show for me. But it's tough for me to get past the old, okay, everything that's happened in our show so far is going in the impossible box, and we're never going to talk about it again. Everything's classified. There's no spore drive. I just thought it was the cheapest, laziest shit ever, and it was infuriating, even though you knew that it was coming, because that was the only way that they could take a show which never should have been a prequel in the first place and make it a prequel.
Yeah.
That being said, Sonequa saves it. She has a lot of great interactions with, I'm going to draw a name of the blank on the Ethan
Peck.
Ethan Peck, who plays Spock, who now we enjoy. He's to me, even though I know that you're not super psyched about how they kick the shit out of him on Strange New Worlds, he is a great performer, and I think he does a wonderful job being the character. I like him, and I like him more than Zachary Quinto's portrayal of the character. I think it's more honest, even though. But yeah, that was my first one. And again, I know that sounded really very left-handed, but Sonequa saved it for me. Of course, we have the emerging Pike era Enterprise crew, which we get to see the Enterprise as kind of a fully fleshed out character in this, and the appearance of Rebecca as Una. I'm not even sure she was Una. I think she was just still called Number One. I don't think we got the Una name until Strange New World started, or I could be totally wrong.
I think she had the Una name briefly in episode 1 of the season.
Okay.
But I think her surname wasn't brought up until Strange New Worlds.
And I mean, let's face it, the whole appearance of Pike being the temporary captain of Discovery because the Enterprise was in the shop or whatever is pretty thin.
The whole contrivance of getting him on the ship is silly, but they needed a legacy character to kind of draw attention.
Yeah, and he still really delivered. So okay, how about you? What's something? Tell me something good.
I'm the first one that I wrote down was also a season 2 episode. Season 2, episode 2, New Eden.
That's why I have that one too.
Yeah, so this one I really liked. How it kind of played into kind of like it didn't use exactly, but it kind of played into the preservers and like humanity, kind of this weird melting pot, even though I don't necessarily agree that that's what happened, but it's an interesting sci-fi concept.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was very Trek. It was very TOS.
It was very TOS with we've got something weird going on. We're trying to figure out where the Red Angel is, but there's this religion and there seems to be ties to it, and we got to figure it out, but we got to follow the Prime Directive, and oh shit, now we can't. There's some very, very Star Trek things about this episode.
Yeah.
This is one of those episodes where I think they really got it right. And so I just want to say that out there is this is early on in Discovery. This is season 2, episode 2.
Right.
And they did a really good job, which was interesting for me because coming off of episode 1, I didn't like episode 1 of season 2. But the episode 2 came on and was that's pretty solid.
Right.
So
they do shoot. They do begin, and I don't know if this is where it begun, but it certainly was really leaned on heavily here. And I've commented on this many times. A big occurrence of them trying to shoehorn in one of the background players in the bridge crew as someone that you're supposed to get emotionally invested in. Lieutenant Oki Owasakun. Or Oki. I think they called her Oki, which is a weird nickname because it's kind of a derogatory term for someone from Oklahoma, like Oki from Muskogee. It's not complimentary.
Oh, right, yeah, from the 20s. Okay, yeah.
So Oki from Muskogee. Yeah, exactly. Like Spider-Man Noir would say. But yeah, no, I thought it was an achievement. All right, let's talk some smack.
Okay.
I'll go first here, and this is my first of. Oh God, did I not pick out one single episode? I didn't. In all of mine,
I picked out singles. I picked 1 2-parter.
Okay, I picked, and maybe what I'm going to talk about will slide right back into you. But number 1 is season 1's the whole Mirror Universe arc. Total waste.
I actually don't have that listed because I had some other ones that I wanted to smack first. But yes, I agree. That wasn't great.
You just can't take the continuity of something that we haven't even seen yet. We kind of saw a little bit. We saw a little bit of it in Enterprise. The really superior, and don't ask Connor Trenier about this because he hated his makeup, but In a Mirror Darkly, which we talked about in our last episode because talking about Enterprise.
I talked about how much I loved that episode.
Yeah, but they treated the mirror universe exactly the way it needed to be in TOS standards. Okay, yes. They had, even though it was 100 years prior, it was the exact same vibe.
Yep.
We had the same sets on the ship. Everything looked like it should have, and that even included a great, beautiful, faithful recreation of a Constitution class, several sets.
Yep.
This just decided to take anything we saw in the mirror universe and just kind of piss all over it, because they just decided to make it look absurd. The set strike. They built this completely insane ship that had like a
dwarf
core of a star or something. Yeah. It's just it was way and again. The technology that we saw in Enterprise was quasi-analogous to the technology that we saw in Mirror Enterprise. And the technology that we saw in Mirror in TOS was pretty analogous to the technology in the regular TOS universe. So for this to be so totally out of whack, was just
totally different. The uniforms are like completely. I mean, the uniforms being completely different is not that far of a stretch,
right?
But I didn't like the costuming choices for the Mirror universe in this stretch, which then filtered out to every other time it's shown up since.
Right. I mean, and in DS9, when they tackled the Mirror universe, it was first done with a sense of menace, and then sometimes they turned it into a sense of silly because one of the Ferengi episodes was about it. But this was just a real, I don't want to use the word perversion, but it was just a real they just really subverted the whole thing that I think
was an inversion,
Yeah, that made the Mirror universe feel like a mirror, because think about it as a mirror, right? You look in something, it's a backwards reflection of who you are. So it's the opposite of who you appear to be. It's not just some random, completely weird, like it's totally everything that, they're not 200 years, they're not 1,000 years ahead in technology where you can have a ship that has a red dwarf as the engine.
Yeah. They're just, it's basically, they're us, but evil. That's the whole idea. Instead of just completely different. Yeah.
They just went kind of too far. All right. So that's my bitchin' number one. So what's your bitchin' number one?
All right. The first one that I wrote down, I kind of bounced around because I was like trying to figure out which ones I wanted to land on. Because I didn't want to be too mean, but so the first one that I picked is another season 2 episode, episode 8, If Memory Serves. Now the reason that I dog on this one a bit is because it breaks General Order 2. Don't go to Talos 4.
Well, it's General Order
4 regardless, but
it's within the first 5.
It's within the first 5, but it's like you're breaking a general order. That's not like, you broke the Uniform Code of Military Justice or whatever. You're breaking a general order. That's a big deal.
You didn't park in your superior's parking spot.
Yeah, it's like this is like 3 steps down from breaking the Prime Directive. This is a problem.
It's the death penalty one. They say repeatedly in the menagerie, it's the only one that there is.
And so it's just another example for me of like Burnham can just get away with anything, and I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like the redesign of the Telosians.
Right. Their heads are a little bit too muscly, aren't they?
No, the Telosians are too buff. Like the Telosians are big, whereas
it's like a Rob Liefeld comic from the 90s. It's like Captain Motorboat.
Yeah, where like the whole juxtaposition of the Telosians was supposed to be big brain, tiny body, because everything is about mind.
And they were all women, I believe.
Yeah, that is true. But like they removed that whole juxtaposition because we want big, buff, scary aliens with big brains. Like that's not the Telosians,
right?
But like the whole contrivance of like Spock has this sort of dyslexia that needs to get fixed, and the only people who can fix it are the Telosians, is just kind of stupid in my opinion.
And it seems kind of like, well, let's stick in something else that the Heritage fans are going to associate with Pike, which was, of course, we'd seen Pike,
and
three episodes, one of which was largely flashbacks, and it was a different guy in a chair that went beep boop.
And this episode really hard leaned into it, where we had Vina appear on on Discovery talking to Pike because they were somehow connected because the shuttlecraft was on Talos,
and they also filmed it in that stupid rock quarry you see in every show that is filmed in Toronto.
Which
that's
they then go back to in Section 31.
It's somewhere in the greater Toronto, Ontario area. There's a rock quarry that people like to shoot in. And that's what they did.
So there's that, and then there's also the one thing that I'm just going to say from a continuity standpoint drove me nuts was the fact that they had the audacity to show footage from the cage before this to try to give us context, and then just reimagine everything, even though they just showed it to us.
That's a big kind of no is when you are, because obviously in showing footage they showed Jeff Hunter as Pike, and now you're like, well, now he looks like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where you can suspend your disbelief, but it's you showed the Enterprise, you showed the bridge, you showed the Telosians, you showed the weapons, you showed everything, and it's
it just doesn't.
You just can't. If you're redesigning everything, then you need to be careful with what you're showing in your last time on, and they just did.
Right.
And so for me, this one just kind of fails both on just a storytelling point of these plot points that should not have been there with Spock, but also just the disregard for the universe. And so this is one of those episodes that just points out that to me very much. And so I just I did not like this one.
Understood. All right, I'm going to try to keep it positive. I'm going to stay in season 2 because again, I thought there were things to like in season 2. But the episode entitled "Brother" was one I enjoyed. And I'll go from saying I like it to telling you what I don't like about it is that I don't really dig on. Look, Spock has a foster sister that literally never comes up again. The thing that kind of touches the emotion with this is that anybody who has siblings, and you have several. I mean, how many brothers and sisters do you have, Peter?
I have 4 siblings, 4 brothers.
You have 4 siblings, including a twin brother.
Yep.
So you also have that twin. You also have that twin language.
Yes.
But I mean, I have an older brother. We don't talk. It sucks, but and us not talking, which has gone on for 5 years now, was followed by a lifelong of series of really not getting along that well. So we all have complicated sibling relationships. If you happen, I know April has a brother she doesn't talk to, so it's just because someone's your sibling doesn't mean they ultimately end up being a good person, or they just can't get along with you. This was the first episode, the one you said you didn't like. But it brings Pike in. He's my doppelganger. Before I grew the beard, now I'm Riker, but I used to be Pike, and my hair isn't as tall anymore. But I tried, and I have some great Pike tall hair photos out there.
Some good Pikes Peaks photos.
I do. I work very hard at it. But this was where we started getting Pike as a fully fleshed out character. Mm-hmm. Anson Mount brought everything to the role. I absolutely love this at the beginning of this.
He did a solid job in this episode.
Yeah, and which people liked it enough that they got their own series, which is going to be back on here in just a matter of weeks. I liked the mystery of the Red Angel. I thought it was satisfactory because you just didn't know where they were going to go with it.
Yeah, in the beginning it worked. For me, it didn't land well, but it was interesting in its introduction.
So it promise. It has a promise. So I liked that, and I did like as the season goes on, as they try to grow that a little bit. So all right. So we shared a good one. So you're down 1, and I'm down 1. So give me another one that you did like.
So another one that I liked, and again, this is in no particular order because I was just hopping around going do I remember this one? Do I not remember this one? And rereading synopses and stuff because I wasn't going to rewatch the whole show. That didn't take a long time.
You gotta squeeze all that in. No.
But so the next one that I had was season 4, episode 10, The Galactic Barrier.
Okay.
So this one had some good tension. It also had some really good stuff with I believe it was Book talking to Ruan Tarka, who we eventually find out is from another universe and he's trying to get home. But
always some guy.
Yeah, that's kind of a tired trope for this show, but the way that they did it in this particular episode was really, really well done because you're sitting there going what's going on? And so the conversation between Tarka and Book was really, really well done. Like we getting the backstory and all of this. And then just the discussion of like how to interact with the galactic barrier. What do we need to do? It is still dangerous. Why is it still dangerous? Like there was actually some world building and stuff going on in this episode, and they actually treated like, these are things that still have consequences.
Right.
So I liked the fact that this episode had some character development. It moved the story along in a good way, and then also had like this interesting side plot with this guy who we had for most of the season we're thinking is the absolute villain, and then we find out he's not.
Yeah. And that's good. Subvert expectations.
Yeah.
Like, try to keep the storytelling interesting.
Yeah. And so I thought that in terms of like a show that's always trying to do subversion, inversion, whatever, this actually landed. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to point this out as a good episode, is like they kept trying and swinging. This one knocked it out. So this one did a good job.
I like it. Very good. Well, I'm going to tilt us back in the negatory direction, and this is a big
bummer.
Big part in both seasons 1 and 2, and it starts from the cold open of the first show. The Klingons, just the existence of the Klingons in this show is totally fucked for me. I'm just going to come right out and say it. When you base the entire premise of your show on radically changing the look and the overall everything of the most iconic race in all of Star Trek, just because we want to do something different, to me was a surefire sign that this show was going to be a dumpster fire for people like you and me.
Yeah. Fair.
You don't need to change the look of their ships, change the way that they look, because they should look like John Koklios. They should look like, they should look like, guys with brown paint and Fu Manchu mustaches. Find some kind of variation around it, or at least make them look like the Klingons. Make them look like you would believe they would be the Klingons from Enterprise at the very least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So some of them have smooth foreheads, some of them don't have smooth foreheads, and that's an interaction.
There would be a
part
way
of that.
to update the costumes from TOS to be a little bit more intense, and then still have maybe update the makeup a little bit.
Yeah. But this is completely absurd. They're wearing like they look like they're wearing turtle shells, like with all the different this and that. And their ships our ships have all of the bones of our ancestors. Like they're going way out there. And I'm really sorry. I really just don't think Klingon males need to have 2 penises, because that definitely came up in that season 1 finale.
It did.
And that's the hill I'll die on. I don't know if you're trying to do shock and awe with starting a Klingon war, but you completely changed the shit. Like, their original bird of prey was a wing and the middle of it was a ball or something. Like where did all of that, where am I supposed to fit all of that in with when we first meet, from a production standpoint, we meet the Klingons in Air to Mercy. That's the end of season 1 of TOS. And you don't even really see a ship, but when you see the D7, it just looks like an era appropriate spaceship. You know what I mean? And we're not even getting into talking about what the overall look of Discovery is at all.
No, I'm
or
not.
The fact that like the Shenzhou, which was a few years older than that, was supposed to be an old ship at that point. But I'm like,
it looks like it belongs in the 24th century.
Yeah. Or you could say, well, maybe it was kind of like the Kelvin, which is still part of the continuity. Like it was the entire problem of making this a prequel, when I just don't, I struggle with the why it ever needed to be so.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my big gripe, and I have more. But yeah.
I have 2 episodes that sort of relate to that, but I'm going to keep them separate because I dislike them for 2 different reasons. So I'll just touch on the one. So this is probably going to come as a surprise to nobody. But one of the bummers for me was season 1's opener, episodes 1 and 2, Vulcan Hello and Battle at the Binary Stars.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
So we're
in the same space.
So it wasn't just the Klingons. The Klingons were frustrating, and I remember we didn't know each other when this came out, but I remember when it first came out, I was complaining bitterly about how they were speaking the Klingon. Like I was impressed that they were speaking it, but I didn't like how it sounded like they had rubber teeth in. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the redesign, and I know that like I went back and forth with people online about it, repeatedly. So I won't beat that horse a bit. The thing that really stuck out to me that I like, design choices aside, but from a storytelling and character standpoint, I think that these two episodes do our lead a major disservice. So just from a storytelling standpoint, this has nothing to do about my feelings about Discovery as a Star Trek show. This is just from a storytelling standpoint. Vulcan Hello, one, it sets up some very strange things about Sarek, which is very strange. So that is a Star Trek thing. I didn't like that. But like, how do I say? There's no real nice way to say this. It paints our protagonist as a terrible human being.
Pretty much.
Like, Burnham comes on the show and like the cold open, it's like, okay, so she's learning, maybe, whatever. Okay, cool. And then the rest of the episode, she's an arrogant putz who just is like, I know better than my mentor, who I've been kowtowing to for the last like 3 scenes, but now suddenly I know better than anybody. And I'm not going to tell anybody where I get my information. I'm not going to explain my reasoning. I'm just going to be like, well,
I'm just going to act.
I'm just going to do it. And then what makes it even worse is that, like, at the end of the Vulcan Hello, right, she starts like a war, right? She starts, like, at the end they open fire, but before that, Georgiou isn't going to follow her advice because she's like, no, that's stupid. And while Georgiou is technically wrong, right, because according to the contrivance of the plot, she is wrong. What is Burnham's solution? To assault her captain and then take over the ship. That is mutiny. We haven't seen anybody do that. And I know that a lot of people try to come in and defend it, like, oh, Riker did this, or Kirk did this. They were the commanding officer of the ship at the time. There's a whole different way of going about that. There's a different leeway.
And then in fact, in doing it, it ended up playing out, well, Picard was really an alien, or that the captain was possessed or something.
Good reason, but like this, there wasn't really a good reason, and also you didn't have the added justification of like, well, she was right and something ended up good. No, she actually screwed it over and made it so much worse. And then, okay, so she goes to the brig because Georgiou wakes up and countermands the order and But then, thousands of people die in the next episode in Battle of the Binary Stars. And then Burnham takes it upon herself to go over to the Klingon ship to fight T'Kuvma on her own, creating another interstellar incident. And then succeeds in getting her captain killed. And at the end, she's sent to New Zealand for penal colony. And
instead of being walked out an airlock,
you're right. And it's one of those things of like, you want me to feel sorry for this person? You want me to?
Well, she just did what she thought was right. Well, who gives a shit?
You want me to think that this person is a good person, where she has made like all of the wrong decisions for all of the wrong reasons, can't learn, and believes herself to be right the whole time, and it's just one of those things. And then, to be perfectly honest, the character doesn't grow tons from that. And
very true.
And that's kind of the struggle, is you start at rock bottom. And I get it, where storytelling, you're like, we want an underdog. There's a way to do an underdog. Tom Paris was an underdog.
That's very true.
And he was technically a mutineer. He was, and you had Chakotay and everyone who was part of the Maquis who were mutineers and deserters and all of that. There's a way to do it. But when you make it this in your face and this visceral, and you see, like, not only did she get her captain, her mentor, who she cared for, killed.
Right.
She got thousands of Starfleet officers killed,
and started a war
thousands of Klingons,
millions
and
more.
Started a war where millions of people died. And it's like, I'm not saying this is unforgivable, because forgiveness can come from lots of things, but it's just like, from a storytelling perspective, you want me to root for this character at all?
Right.
And then like the very next episode, it's like, oh, we're sympathetic and da. It's like, no, you need to show me that this character is growing or has doubt or needs or is seeking redemption or whatever. And that's just not a thing that really, it's like touched on here and there, but it's not something that goes through. And so I think that just for that, of just setting up Michael Burnham as a character, these 2 episodes are just shit. So
and nowhere to go but up. So I'll say something good about season 1.
There you go.
It does not have to do with that. And it's funny because I absolutely trashed the overall look at this, but the Lorca switcheroo, I thought I did not see that coming. You know, and I enjoyed the overall concept of it. It's, you know, I hated the mirror universe stuff. I was just rambling about it a minute ago, but giving us a mirror captain that crossed over and created, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe you just saw it coming, maybe somebody else saw it coming, but I mean, we didn't really know that there weren't really hints of the mirror universe being like, oh, it's really the mirror universe. They snuck it in.
No.
That we didn't really get it until the last minute. I thought that was all right. I thought that, so I thought that portion, and I know that kind of separates, you know, I for my best and worst, I've done more concepts and arcs that I liked and disliked than I have individual episodes, because I'm, you know, what can I say? I'm Michael Burnham. I'm bending the rules, and people still love me for it. Well, maybe not. But I thought it was an early victory in the first season of Blurg.
Yeah,
to quote Liz Lemon.
That's fair.
But yeah, no, I liked the fake out. It was effective. It worked for me. It's good stuff.
Nice. It didn't work as well for me, but yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was an interesting choice and executed.
All right, give me something, and then I have one more new one after this. So I don't know how many you have left.
I have a couple. So I have so this is my third good one. So I picked another one out of season 4, episode 13, Coming Home. This is the episode where we are trying to communicate with species 10C. So this is like basically it's the end of the season. So it's the whole bit where we're like communicating with these giant leviathans in space, and we're, you know, Close Encounter of the Third Kind sort of doing it. And then there's like telepathic communication between like Vulcan Ambassador and Saru, and like there's a lot of like moving parts and a lot of like reflection on like what can we do with, you know, first contact, because it's not, the Prime Directive doesn't apply. These people are these alien race is very, very advanced.
Right.
So it's how do we interact with a species that doesn't even know that we're here and doesn't know that their technology is hurting us. And so I thought that this was again, like the previous episode, this one was really, really well done in keeping kind of that tension going, and keeping that kind of we're learning and we're trying and we're stumbling, but we're gonna make it. And eventually they do, and eventually there's that good like final bit of conversation where they come to terms and all of that. And then, you know, at the end, Earth comes back into the Federation. So there's kind of like this coming together, which is what the name of the episode is. But like, but there's kind of like this thing of like everything's disparate and crazy, and then all of a sudden, like very Federation, we're all able to kind of come together in this first contact and figure out what we want and figure out how we can work together to understand each other and our enemy. And so I think that this is a very, very Star Trek episode for the most part. And so I think they nailed it as a general
good
rule.
Deal.
So
I see. I knew we could find something good, but then we'll shift back to talking about stuff we hated. Season 1, homicidal killer Harry Mudd.
Oh, that episode. Yeah.
I mean, top props to Rainn Wilson, as he's super talented and very dynamic. Everybody loves Dwight Schrute from The Office.
Rainn Wilson is a great actor. I will give him that.
But Harry Mudd is portrayed with the huge indicator of like tone deafness towards Star Trek by this series. Yeah. Because Harry Mudd was a comic relief in 2 silly episodes of TOS, and I think one of TAS, if I'm not mistaken. They brought him back.
He came back.
But he did not go around just murdering everyone and being this crazy arch villain. I wrote "gag me with the Tribble," even though he wasn't the Tribble guy. That was Cyrano Jones. So I caught myself. But I'm like, all right, you plucked out a name that fits in the time frame and whatever, and you got Rainn Wilson, and that's great. But
they plucked a name and saw pirate.
Yeah. And so, and he was not a violent killer, which this guy is like, I'm going to kill everybody and take the ship because I've got a time turner or whatever.
He's for those who haven't seen like TOS, but have seen like, you know, maybe like Star Wars animation. He's Hondo Ohnaka, but campier.
Yeah, you're exactly very campy. Oh, Kirk, me boy. And there was no levity. There's no joy. And this, I won't say the portrayal, because again, I'm not knocking Ray
he
Wilson's
acts
portrayal.
masterfully. It's just it doesn't fit
Yeah.
the character.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just it's an overall, and again, it's very early on, and we know that Star Trek series have a curse of a first season issue, but this one is, and again, you know, you're trying to pull from something and making it totally different to just say, but I got you. You know, it's like, I got you. You know, I rooked you with bringing in a name you knew if you're a Star Trek fan, but giving you a character that you don't recognize.
This one also had like a weird time loop thingy that they kept on doing, and so they kept going back to like this disco party at the beginning, which was kind of funky.
Playing a weird version of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. All right, that's my bad. Give me a bad. Now you just down to your last bad one?
No, I've got 3 still.
You got 3, okay.
Yeah, I've got 2 good ones and 3 bad ones.
Okay.
So my next bad one is actually season 4.
Okay.
Season 4, episode 4, All Is Possible. This is the episode where Tilly and Adira are on a shuttlecraft with cadets.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was near the bottom of the stacks too.
And I know this is super low-hanging fruit. And
2 characters I already hate, plus kids.
Yeah, and
which I hate.
And to be fair, this episode was like a backdoor test closet pilot for
Starfleet Academy.
That is what it was.
And man, thank God we got, and I enjoyed Starfleet Academy very much, and I'm saddened by its loss. But these characters, and again, I didn't even read the summary of this. I remember the characters in that episode had 0 charisma.
Oh, they did not. They did not have charisma.
Where the characters in Starfleet Academy, the show, very charismatic, without a doubt.
They are much more memorable. These characters are not. You can see that some of them, well, from my perspective, it does seem like some of these are like the working bones of what become some of our later characters.
Okay.
But yeah, like the whole thing is like, you know, you got to trust and you got to do like, it feels kind of like a chintzy sort of Saturday morning cartoon sort of thing, in a weird way. And for me, especially at this point in the show, Tilly as a leader just doesn't work for me.
Oh God!
And so, and it's like if Tilly's if Tilly was written better, she would be fine. But she's just not written well. And I think this was also the point in the show where they were, for whatever reason, like they were just not using flattering camera angles, and it was rough. Like they were doing it. I can't assert intent, but it looks like intent of doing it on purpose.
Oh boy.
And so it's not a great episode. I get what you're trying to do, but you're not doing right by the characters. You're not doing right by the actress with your camera choice, and your story is kind of flimsy. So it's not, out of like the later seasons where they generally were better, this was one of the kind of the crappy ones.
Yeah. I gotcha. All right, I'll say something positive. The moment I had been waiting for was this show to not be a prequel anymore, and that happened with the episode the Hope That Is You, which is season 3 premiere. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for seasons 1 and 2 at all.
No.
In a lot of ways, you could just cut it out, and you could have a poor woman pop out of a big blue sky hole and land on a planet, and that could be the beginning of the show. And then perhaps
very interesting beginning of a show.
Yeah, you could find out where she came from and why she can't find a way to go back. We just burned 2 seasons beforehand that, while it did give us some very memorable episodes that we talked about, and it gave us Strange New Worlds essentially by introducing Pike and the Enterprise crew. This I really enjoyed. The fish out of water element of our cast of characters, not being jammed into being the round hole jammed into the square peg of being a prequel finally begins. And I said skipping the first 2 seasons and dropping it into the setting would have been the way to go.
Yeah.
And it's not like when they did it, it was suddenly totally flawless, because we've already talked about other episodes in 3 and 4 that. But on average, what happened in seasons 3 and 4 and 5, there was a 5th season. So they had more than half of the show that took place in the is it the 31st century setting? 31st or 32nd?
32nd century.
that I think was absolutely a great choice. So that's me. That's my last new one. So if you have one new one, pick. If you have two, pick one, and then we'll finish with the bad one. Oh no, that's not true. I have two bad ones left. So if you have two, okay.
So I will kind of. So I'll do one, and then I'll mention a kind of an honorable mention, I guess, for my last one for good ones. So one also from season 3, episode 12. There is a tide. So this one is the crew's been captured by the Orion pirates, basically. I can't
Emerald Chain.
I want to say Emerald Dawn. That's wrong.
This Crimson Dawn, which is from Star Wars.
I had it all mixed up.
It's red and green is for Christmas.
Yeah, but the crew has to work together. So you actually have like characters are interacting and plotting and doing things, and the ship has to work with them, like the sentient computer that they've been developing the entire season. So there's a lot of good, like, this is an episode where the characters actually do stuff to work together. And this also has some scenes where my favorite character that they introduced in this season, Admiral Vance, does some good shining here. Especially this was the episode that got a laugh out loud moment because it brought a technical manual thing from the books into reality in a way that grossed everyone out, but everyone who's read the books knew, which was the replicator poop joke. These taste like real apples. Well, they're not. They're actually from our replicated shit. Like it was a really, really funny thing where he's just trying to he's doing a power play to screw with the pirates. And it's like everyone knows how replicators work at this point, man. That's not shocking, but it is to the audience, and so they played it up.
Right.
So I thought that like the way that they handled the characters and how they had to interact, and that they actually let Vance be the freaking admiral of Starfleet and actually intimidate somebody that was like a really, really good thing to do. That was a good episode. My other quick mention is season 5, episode 4. Face the Strange. This one is time travel shenanigans, which granted does have some rough points because they have to go back to like season 1 and 2 at a couple.
Which is always difficult,
especially
pull it off.
Especially when like you've had age different. Like sometimes it's easy, and other times it's not.
And the hairstyles, yes.
But particularly this episode had actually some really good character development for the new character that they brought in that season, which is Rayner, who was probably the standout character for me that season.
Very true. Yeah, Callum Keith Rainey
who does a great job. So, like, again, that's a good episode that does some good character development and does a passable job with time travel. I think it does it better than the Harry Mudd episode. So it's the same kind of idea, but it's done a little bit better.
Gotcha. All right, we'll do a tag team bummer because I got 2 and you got 2, right?
We'll see if they're the same ones.
Tag team bummer. Well, this is both of mine are big picture. Section 31. Why?
One of mine is related to that. So yeah.
Here's my statement. 22nd century, shadowy and secret. You get Eric Pierpoint, who was the lead actor in the Alien Nation, which was a spinoff of a movie, and he was a Starfleet captain in an episode of DS9. He was the the shadowy Section 31 boss of Malcolm Reed.
Yep.
23rd century. Celebrate us everywhere. We've got our own ships and our own space stations and blah, blah, blah.
And everything. Yeah.
We do. 24th century. You've never heard of us except that stupid fucking movie, which we will never talk about again. And I wrote, pick a fucking lane.
Yep.
So I guess if the argument is we were small and we got big and then we got small again, and we were part of the original pre-Federation Starfleet charter. So like Earth Starfleet, USPA, if you prefer.
Yeah.
But yeah, their portrayal in the second season with the whole, we've got our own ships and Giorgio joined us, but then they had the guy who was Pike's like frenemy, but then he got taken over by the control space virus thing. We're like,
he got Borgified before the Borg. It was
and then they made it all go away. But not really, because then they went over behind the shadows because Giorgio somehow stopped aging. And then 50 years later, you saw her in that movie when it's like mid 24th century and she's still running things. And they were thinking it was going to people were going to like it and it was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's just Section 31 it absolutely sucks in this show.
Yep.
They take something that was cool, kind of like the Klingons used to be cool, and they kind of fuck it into the ground.
Yep.
Sorry, pardon for my overabundance of pejorative language, but yeah, that really did not work for me. Yeah. Colorful metaphors all across. All right, give me a bummer, and then I got one more bummer.
Okay, so a bummer that is related to that is season 2, episode 9, Project Daedalus. So this is where they're trying to learn a little bit about control, about Section 31, and they're like, there is a spy among us. Ooh.
And, that's an original concept.
And then, of course, we get
Section 31 is all spies.
Yeah.
That's all they do.
So we get some Section 31 stuff, which is kind of stupid. But the thing that I wanted to, the thing that really gets me in this particular episode and that I want to pick on about is this is one of the instances that the cardinal sin, I call it, of ensembles where you have a character that you don't know their name, and then, or you might have heard it a couple times, but then this character comes front and center. You learn all of their tragic backstory, and then they
kill them. It's the buddy cop. It's the classic buddy cop, which I talk about absolutely all the time. It's in every show that we do, with the exception of the Spotlight or interview show. I talk about buddy cop shit because it's always out there.
Quite the same thing, but because buddy cop is usually like they're a co-lead or something. But
I'm on 2 days away from retirement.
Yeah, this doesn't quite follow the same thing, but this is REM for anyone who remembers this character.
Yeah, Sarah Minnich, who again I keep this is the 12th time I brought up people I've met on the cruise, but I had a nice chat with her. It was the same day Discovery got canceled. I saw her.
Ouch.
I saw her in the cafeteria, the Windjammer, and I said, "Gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that." And thank you, and blah blah blah. But what a lovely woman.
Yeah,
lovely.
And like they brought her back to play another character because she did a good job. But this particular character REM was like a hybrid, like had synthetic parts. It was kind of interesting choice, world building wise, but
it doesn't really
make a lot of sense. But that aside, there's this whole thing about she's got like this back subroutine that Section 31 has installed in her cybernetic processor that takes over and lets her and has her like send information to Section 31 so they can track the ship and blah da 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 da. But then we also learn like how she got what accident led her to have all this cybernetics and all, and like it's this really, really sad tearjerker story.
Right.
Which would be interesting if she didn't
spend any time with the character.
If we had spent any time with the character before then, and then if the character wasn't giving death flags the entire episode.
Right.
So
it's
like you're doing this, and I'm just sitting here, okay, when is she going to die? When is she going to die? When is she going to die? Because this is clearly where you're going. And then finally she dies at the end, and it's supposed to be like this big, super emotional moment. And for me, it was like, I saw it coming from the beginning of the episode because of the way that you did it. And so
very telegraphed.
And so that's
telegraphed and shoehorned. That's the show.
And that's
telegraphed and shoehorned.
And that's why I want to point this episode out as like the most egregious version, like, because it happens a couple times in Discovery and other stuff, but like this is the most egregious example where it's like you take a character that like is visually interesting so people recognize her, and then suddenly backstory and suddenly dead, and that's just not good. It's not good storytelling. If you're gonna make things seem dangerous, just do a red shirt at that point,
right?
Like it because otherwise it just feels like you're doing filler to make it feel more of a big deal, and it just doesn't work. So
they just didn't even have red shirts in this. All right, well, here's my last one. And again, I went overarching, and maybe this is a little more disappointing because we talked it through when it was on. It was you and me, and I think Jen Watson was recording at the time. The final season, I wrote, yeah. I said, I was just remembering how excited we all were about what ended up being the last season, though it wasn't really necessarily portrayed as that, was teed up as this big continuation of TNG's The Chase, which was a 6th-season episode that showed that we're all part of this great galactic family and so on and so forth. And it just didn't end up being that. Like, it ended up being an archaeology quest. What do they call it?
Quest.
MacGuffin quest in every episode. It was led by this sudden acceleration of Burnham being an expert at everything she touched. She could do calculated, like that episode that she was on the planet with the wonderful Doug Jones as Saru, and they were like, "Oh, you have to do clickety clickety clack clack, and you have to stand over here and do this thing." It was like even Indiana Jones would be like, "Fuck this!" Like it was too much.
Yeah, and that's what
I don't even really remember how it ended because it was so. What I do remember is they had a flash forward that they had all the cast wrap. They had a big party because Saru and the Vulcan president, was she president or ambassador?
She was an ambassador.
Got married, and then you jump forward, and then you see Burnham as a retired admiral, and she's with Book, and they have a grown son who's starting Starfleet. But they go back, and then they connect it to the short trek where the original looking Discovery ends up thousands of years in the future, that your average viewer would be like, what the fuck is this? It's like the ending that like.
I think I said at the time, this was one of the strangest continuity hills to die on.
Right. It would be like, you could just write it off. But no, they had to be like, no, we got to bring that back around to a short track that had aired 5 years earlier or whatever it was.
Aired in between season 1 and 2 that almost no one saw.
Right,
Calypso,
exactly.
I think it was called.
Yeah, and I think I said it frames the series for me as in that kind of wet fart kind of ending. It was like what the fuck?
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, yeah. All right, take us home.
Okay. So you were talking about the final. I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Again, didn't you already have your swipes at the
not the first episode? This is season 1, episode 15, the finale of season 1.
Season finale.
Yeah, the season finale of season 1. Will you take my hand? And the big thing for me is just all of these stupid contrivances that make no sense. So the episode before, we finally get back from the mirror universe, and like a couple years, like 4 years have passed, and the war is still going on.
Right.
Okay. Why the time jump? Just to make it seem
I didn't think
worse.
it was that long. Was it that long? I thought it was like a year.
It was like a year or
2,
two, I think.
Okay. It is ridiculous.
Yeah. And then, so we have all of that. We have L'Rell is back on Kronos trying to do a power grab, which she eventually succeeds in, which is weird just based on some things that we know from Klingon culture. But
because it was also the episode where we saw the Klingon peeing with two.
That was at the end. Yeah.
Trying to make us think the Klingon has 2 dicks, and I'm still not buying it. I think it's that weird thing where it happens to anybody who has a penis. You sometimes pee 2 streams. Yeah. Sorry, I'm coming right out and saying.
Well, it's just one of those things. Some systems are redundant, and not everything is, because you don't need that to stay alive. But that being said, but like one of the things that really killed me on this one was where does the plan originate from? The plan originates from the evil Emperor Giorgio. This is not a Starfleet plan. This is like, we're going to lean into our evil. It's like
let's have an extra dimensional warlord drive the bus.
A genocidal maniac drive the bus. This is a great idea. And then, so we have that. It's like, have we learned nothing? Like, what are we trying to say in this show? Are we saying like Starfleet principles don't matter? Like, what are we trying to do? Or is it like we have to stop bad guys in war by any means necessary, even if it means us becoming as bad as our enemies? And that just doesn't seem like a good message.
Right.
So they do that, and then the final. That sounds bad, but the solution that they end up doing is basically putting like an antimatter bomb in the core of Kronos, which is. First, it's wild because it makes Kronos seem like it's Naboo with a liquid core.
Yeah, right. Right.
And secondly,
deep planet core.
Yeah, and secondly, it's like you're putting this bomb with a dead man switch in the hands of this Klingon who you purportedly trust, but your whole thing of keeping peace with the Klingons is not negotiation. It's not Starfleet principles. It's the sword of Damocles. And I don't like that as the solution.
Yeah.
Because like for all of its faults, right, there is an old take on the 5 Years' War, which is what this is supposed to be. the war between the Klingons and the Federation right before TOS, which didn't culminate, but had like the Battle of Axanar with Garth of Izar and all of that.
Right.
There's a fan film. Things happened, but
correct.
But like that whole thing where the Klingons came to respect the Federation, and so it was a coming to terms as warriors. That makes more sense culturally, and also allows the Federation to still kind of have the moral high ground in a way, because they were able to hold to their principles, but also stem the tide against the Federation with scientific advancement and, ingenuity. This does none of that. And so I think that it just doesn't do a good job of showcasing what the Federation is about, and also just makes the Klingon leans into the idea that the Klingons are animals that need to be controlled. And so I don't think that this lands in a good way. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for hanging in there, listeners, because and again, you don't see us necessarily grabbing Discovery that often, because I don't want to have one of those kind of shows because the thing that we really focus on is talking about episodes, because there are a lot of Star Trek podcasts out there that love to talk about big messages and talk about fans, about their fan experience. And that's all well and good, but that is not something Peter and I are really interested in exploring. We like to talk about the episodes. We like to talk about the movies. So to me, it's incumbent on us not to just pile on and just focus on stuff that we don't enjoy. So we're admitting we don't love Discovery. I'm not saying we'll never talk about it again, but we're a little bit more cautious to avoid it, because we like to talk about things that I feel like we have something interesting to say about it. Yeah. Of all of the Star Trek shows that have existed, Discovery is the one I just can't really get into in the same way, that even if there's an episode of Strange New Worlds that I don't like I thought the third season was really not that great. Overall, I think the show is great, and I think it does a lot of good stuff. So thanks for hanging in there with us. I think we're talking Picard next time. If that's the next show in the line.
It's that or Lower Decks,
yeah, it's one of the two. So, and again, we're doing these best and worst episodes of shows that have ended, so that we can give you kind of a complete picture. But anyway, thanks for hanging in there. If you love Star Trek Discovery and we have just offended the hell out of you, and you're still listening, I'm grateful. Come back. We'll have different.
Please fire torpedoes and tell us why we're wrong.
But absolutely do that. We definitely welcome hearing from you guys. So again, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com is the mailbox. Peter, where do people find you if they want to inundate you talking about Discovery and like, how dare you?
Which is fair. So you can find me around the interwebs at Patrice Aquinas on most social medias. I'm not terribly active, but if you at me, you'll get my attention, and then I might say something. I'm also on our Discords. You can also find me over on ELH's Twitch, YouTube, and Discord, where we do Star Trek role-playing games. And then you can also find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Excellent. And you can find me in real life and my lovely wife April at Star Trek Long Island in Hapog, New York. That is in Long Island, east of the city proper. June 12, 13, and 14, we're going to be running a booth, and we're also conducting a panel and actually running a panel, as I'd mentioned, for the delightful Nicole DeBoer of Deep Space Nine. So we are very excited about that. Please find Trek Long Island online. Buy your tickets. We would love to see you there. We'll actually have a little bit of a giveaway if you visit our booth and sign up for our free Patreon. There will be a special prize. The person gets drawn from our list of people who we talk to. So we're kind of excited about that. But if you're attending the show already or interested in attending, you live in the tri-state area, please definitely hit us up. Outside of that, if you're listening to this in the future, please find both myself and Secret Friends Unite on all of the big socials, with the exclusion of X and TikTok. We don't really mess with that. Secret Friends Unite is simply Secret Friends Unite. Just give it a search. I can be found as at the C3, TheCeethree. I also am finally getting back around to doing my little regular 3-minute kitchen chats, where I'm talking about stuff that I enjoy that I don't find the time to slide into our other shows about pop culture in general. Usually it's about something about comics or a movie that we don't have time to cover. But find that on our Secret Friends Unite YouTube channel or on any of our socials. But with that, friends, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging in there with us as we tried to navigate, pun intended, Star Trek Discovery. But I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.